Here we
So,
go.
all right.
Should be going.
All right. Awesome. Thanks. All right. Welcome, everybody, to MVP Office Hours. My name is Jared Kingston. I'm a Salesforce MVP and Solution Engineer at Seven Summits. Joined today by one of my co leaders, Dale Ziegler. Dale, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Dale Ziegler, also MVP, and I am the Salesforce practice lead for the Claris Group.
Awesome. And we're unfortunately missing Jackie Traviesa, who keeps us in line and on track. So we certainly miss her today. But welcome to MVP Office Hours. We like to kick it off every week with just a quick overview of all of the events that are happening in the community. And if you were out at Dreamforce last week, you may still be recovering from the week-long adventure that it is. But in any case, we've got several Dream-Ins coming up here and some other events that you can see there on the screen. So definitely encourage you to check those out if you're semi-close to those. Definitely worth going to. Or if you just love to travel, go check them out. But just let's move on to what is MVP Office Hours. We hold this the first and third Friday every month, and we have a handy registration link there for you that you can just bookmark, and we update it with the new meetings after each one so that you can register for the next one. So recommend doing that. Open Q&A discussion. It's really like an answers live almost. So we'll try to give you a good approach, some pointers, resources, try to solve the question if we can. Otherwise, we'll take it offline or point you in the right direction. And the recording is always posted out to the community as well as Twitter, and we do that via YouTube. So we have a YouTube channel that you can check out and subscribe to. And so all that we ask is, as we go on this, is just mute yourself so that we can hear the questions and answers clearly. If you want to ask a question, there's a function to just raise your hand in the meeting. You can do that if somebody's talking. Otherwise, if there's a dead space, we'll ask people to just speak up. And it's good to announce yourself, even though you could see your name. It's good to announce yourself when talking. And everyone's welcome to share experiences. We have MVPs on the call, but just because you're not MVP doesn't mean your experience means nothing, right? We're here to help one another. So if you've experienced an issue that someone's dealing with and you've battled through it, right? Definitely jump in and share what you've done, because we want to help everybody out here. And then the chat is great for posting resources. So if you have something you want to share, post that in there. We'll post stuff in there, but we're also going to be recording those in this slide and post them out. And then, if it gets down to it, we with Zoom now, we've started to jump into screen sharing, and you can show us your screen and walk us through the issue if it gets to that. So, and then lastly, before we get going here, MVP Office Hours is global. And so we have a site, mvpofficehours.info. It's built on Salesforce communities, and it allows you to access all the information about the different MVP Office Hours groups, such as this one, EMEA, Portuguese, APAC is getting going, etc. So definitely check out that site, because what it also allows you to do is you can subscribe to our email list, and that's where Jackie will send out a registration link for each new meeting. And at any time, if you want to be taken off that, we can take you off of that. But that site allows you to get on that list if you don't want to think about it. And it also gives you access to all our information. Sorry, go ahead, Dale.
No, and I was going to say Carlos is on the call. If Carlos, you want to unmute and
Oh, sweet.
well, he was earlier. Hey, Carlos, if you are on, please feel free to unmute and talk about Portuguese office hours, because you're doing some really cool stuff with that. Maybe he didn't get back in.
No worries.
what he usually pitches is that you don't have to know Portuguese. There is actually a lot of conversation in English. Carlos is actually trilingual. He speaks English, Portuguese, and Spanish. So even though it is users from Brazil and other Portuguese-speaking communities, there's a lot of English being spoken. So definitely open to anybody, and the translations will be handled for you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super great. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Who wants to be the first? Oh, look at that, coming straight in. Stuart Adil. Stuart, you want to just ask your question, or do you want me to read it for you? I can go ahead and read it.
Oh,
go ahead.
Find the unmute button. Hi, this is Stuart.
Hey, good to hear from you. Go ahead.
No, I got a chance to go to Dreamforce thanks to my wife's budget. She let me go, and it was amazing. There was a lot of stuff to do, though. There were I found that there were sessions on top of sessions, and my schedule was booked before Agenda Builder was even open. And so what I did get to see was pretty amazing, and the connections and the people I got to talk to were amazing. But I noticed that even looking at the community and also the Twitter feed afterwards, that I missed a lot of stuff that I didn't get to see. And so I'm just wondering if there are tips and tricks in this group of how do people deal with all of the information that came out of Dreamforce and all the sessions that that happened. How do people digest all the information that came out of Dreamforce in the next weeks and months after it happened? Is there some special special ninja skills that I need to possess in order to take in all that information?
Well, and I'm trying to, I mean, that's a phenomenal question, especially, I mean, yes, we all know it's a fire hose. I love that you used fire hose in your question in the chat, because it is. Whether you got to go or not, yeah, there was a whole bunch of stuff that a lot of people didn't get to see. The first thing that I do is I go back into Agenda Builder and go back to the sessions, because within the first week or two, the speakers are supposed to upload their slide decks. So that if you went to the session, if you didn't get to go to the session, if you didn't get to go to Dreamforce, you can at least get that content, because it's then also built on the community. You have links to who those speakers are, so that if you wanted to reach out to them and ask questions, actually connect to them, whatever, you can. So the Dreamforce site doesn't go down. It's always up for you to then go consume afterwards. That's my first go-to be honest.
Yep, agreed.
So like this was a session that I wanted to get to but couldn't. I think Sarah might be on the call. I thought I saw her name up there. But we can go in there, and there's who spoke. There's the chatter feed where questions have been happening. She already uploaded the deck, super awesome. And thank you, Becky, as well. But that's a great starting point to go get some of that content.
Yeah, and I would say too, like what I used to do when I was on the customer side and would go to more sessions is really just try to kind of go back and reorganize some of my notes that I would take, and some of that was taking notes from that I wrote down on paper. I know who does that, but and then combining them with any digital notes I took as well, and just kind of going back through and then forming those into maybe things I want to do with my org or on the platform, or even just go learn more about on Trailhead or what have you.
And wow. Thanks. So I just think I may have answered part of my own question. Sorry, I'm slow. I'm not dumb. I'm slow sometimes. You remember a woman by the name of Marissa Cranis?
Yes.
She works for Salesforce. I'm going to put a link. I'm going to put a link in the chat here. I just remember she put a link out the day after Dreamforce as people were leaving of everything you'd want to know about content that came from Dreamforce. So I'll be quiet for the rest of the session because I just realized
Dude, no. You're not allowed to be quiet.
I asked a question and then I realized, wait, I think Marissa actually already answered my question.
There you go.
This will be a page that I'm going to go back to then over the next few weeks and relive a lot of the Dreamforce sessions because she has a link to every one of them that you'll probably want to see. At least the big ones, the keynotes and the firesides and a lot of the big highlight sessions.
Perfect. This is great. Awesome. Thank you, Stuart.
I'll
All
ask
right.
a follow-up question.
Go for it.
In terms of Dreamforce strategy, right? Just segueing in, all of these things are recorded. They're easy to access. Do folks tend to go to things that are less recorded, less easy to access? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's great. You can go to big keynote or all that, but all of those things are readily available, well edited, and you can kind of watch them later. So I just wanted to float out to the crowd. Does that impact your strategy on what to prioritize across Dreamforce? You tend to go to kind of the smaller sessions, things that are more out of the way, more with individual speakers that you want to connect with because of that.
I'm a hands down yes on that. If you can only see a live, I'm going to go see a live. If I can see the recording, I'm going to watch the recording afterwards.
Yep.
That absolutely takes priority in my scheduling.
I've been adopting that strategy, and I was just curious if others were kind of going that way. And maybe it's something that happens if you've been to Dreamforce a few times and you just kind of your values shift. But maybe it's just being practical. Like, wow, this is something I can relive later.
Yeah, I don't know if you haven't been. I'll take the other side on this one, Stuart here. If you haven't been to Dreamforce before, or if you're like me and you get caught up into that moment, there's a couple keynotes that I go to where I like to go because there's a time in the keynote where the goosebumps start to hit. They start talking about how the community is affected by the work that's being done, and I can feel the energy in the room, and that gets me pumped up and gets me excited about continuing to work hard on the work that I'm doing, not just in Salesforce at my job, but in the community and the volunteer work that I'm doing. And so while I know that this session is being recorded and I can watch it anytime, and hundreds of thousands of people are watching it, the fact that I'm there in the room and I'm listening and Parker Harris may be saying something, it's just that something about that energy of the fired upness, the something about being there just really gets to me, and I love it. So that's if you haven't had that experience, I'd say do that once, and if you get into it, then that's great.
I would agree. Main keynote, true to the core, any like the admin keynote, any of those are always good, energizing ones. I definitely agree with you, Stuart. If anybody is brave enough, I would open the floor to anybody who went for the first time just to hear their experience, because I know I have 8 Dreamforces under my belt. I'm pretty sure Jared might be in double digits. I know a lot of us have many. Who went for the first time? Let's hear your perspective.
Hi, this is Joanna. Hopefully I'm off mute. I went for the first time this year. Unfortunately, I got to go with Salesforce's veteran program called VetForce.
Yeah.
So I went out representing VetForce, which was great. And they had scheduled seating for us for like the admin keynote, Mark's keynote, the partner keynote, and a couple others. So we were required to go to those, which was great. And I agree with, I think Stuart was saying, you just get like the goosebumps and just hearing it while you're there was awesome. But I also knew that going to Dreamforce as my first one, I had an agenda of things that I wanted to accomplish. I work for a nonprofit, so I knew I wanted to go to the Salesforce.org Lodge and spend some time there and just get best practices and talk with other people. So I tried to make the most of that, knowing that I can catch a lot of these recordings on the back end as well. And some advice that I had gotten before I went was don't try to do everything and try to go to all the sessions. Sometimes you get the most out of Dreamforce by those connections that you make with those people when you're standing in line for lunch or when you're on your way to a session, etc. So like advice that was given to me was don't be so rigid in your schedule. Make sure you have some goals for when you go there. Like I said, mine was to get more information on nonprofit, and also be open to adjusting your schedule if you make a connection with somebody and have conversations with them.
Very cool.
Awesome. Go for it, Rob. Rob Kaplan, you guys want to jump in with a question? Look like you had you.
I just unmuted him.
Thanks very much. Hear me now?
Yep.
Awesome, thanks. So in a nutshell, I've designed a custom object, and it has a lookup field to, and I think it's master detail lookup field to products. And if you click on that from the little icon, the little lookup icon, you can basically filter on kind of like a keyword at the top or one particular parameter. And what's interesting is if you go to the products table itself, you can have multiple filters. And so I've got kind of a snapshot of what I'm asking. And let me just, can I screen share this? Is there a way to let me screen share for a second?
I would tell you yes if I unmuted to tell you yes. Hold on one second.
Cool.
Hold on. Stop share. Okay. You should now be able to go to your main Zoom window and hit the share icon.
Okay. Shucks. 1 second. I probably hid that window. Oh, here we go. Share. Main screen, screen 2. Share.
It's trying. There we go.
Screenshot. Note annotated.
Yeah, we got it.
So everybody knows this, okay? Or at least if you're using the products table, you know this. You go to the products table, and you can have multiple parameters here, as many as you want, and then you do your search. So my difficulty is, here's my custom object. Here's the icon. When you do that, all you get is this. Now that's standard functionality. I don't have a complaint about it, but it's not as robust as searching within the products itself. So my question is, how would you design that robustness to the custom object? Now it could be, I need to ask this question of Jen Lee and do a flow. Okay, that's a fair answer. You guys don't have to go down the rabbit hole with me. I'm just wondering, has anybody seen this before? Has anybody done something with this before? And I will shut up and take my question offline.
No, I'm just looking at my org here.
Just from a housekeeping standpoint, just to make absolutely sure, since you are in a sandbox, is this a full copy or partial copy, or did you make up this data that might go against business rules? Just level setting.
Okay, well, I'm in a sandbox. It's full data.
Full data. Okay, cool.
You have to come back to that one. That one's an interesting one.
Okay, let's leave it on the table for now. I don't want to crush the time. Thank you.
I think we had a couple of hands raised in the chat. Why am I missing where I'm supposed to go here?
Hi, this is Sarah Cortez.
Hey, Sarah, you were one of them. Go for it.
Okay, so I'm kind of new to Salesforce stuff, and I'm taking a bunch of trailheads, and I've taken quite a few, but I'm getting kind of blocked on some of the trailheads that have to do with managing the playground and learning how to certify the playground. And so that's really what I'm looking for help at, notably the one managing your playground and the challenges installing the Dreamhouse app. I keep getting an error message. So I don't know if that's an appropriate topic for this meeting, but that's my challenge.
I would say it's not an appropriate topic. Let's get in and see what we can do.
Hey, quick question for you on that. Do you already have the Dreamforce app installed by any chance?
The Dreamhouse app is the one that this challenge requires you to install. So I don't have it installed to my knowledge, but I get a message. I get an error message. I just tried to do it again. I've been trying this since July 20th. And I took a screenshot of the message, and it says, this app can't be installed. There are problems that prevent this package from being installed. Your company currently has exceeded its data storage limits, including an extra overflow buffer.
Are you doing this in an org that has had other trailheads, or is it a production org?
Well, I mean, the only way I would answer that is to say that I'm in Trailhead. So, and it had me create a playground. And
Interesting. Yeah. If you started as I did this yesterday, I actually did this the other day, and the playground I was using, and mine was a different error. It was around the amount of custom apps in my org, and the Trailhead playground I was using had one too many in them. So I had to just generate a new playground specifically to install that Dreamhouse app.
You had to create another playground to install the Dreamhouse app.
Yeah. So, like, Dale, if you go to that step there, install the Dreamhouse, maybe it will. And then if you scroll to the bottom of that, okay, yeah. So here on the hands-on challenge section, right, this is where you can select what org you're using. And so, you obviously already have a Trailhead playground, but you can, link up dev orgs, other dev orgs, or you can there towards the bottom of that menu, create a new Trailhead playground. And it takes like a minute or two for it to go through and generate that new playground and allow you to log in. So that's what I ended up doing, just because, yeah, some of those orgs, they're not going to have a lot of data, and especially if you're using like an existing dev org that already has a lot of data or any sort of other org, then the best way around that is just to create a new Trailhead playground.
Yeah, I've created a few of them. I've got a few here.
Question of ignorance here. What is the difference between a playground and a dev org?
Very little. It's
yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I want to say they're somewhat one and the same.
the only thing I know for sure is that a Trailhead playground has a domain
Yeah.
already set.
Yeah.
Because when you first log into the Trailhead Playground, it'll be like your domain is Badger, Fruity Badger. Like it's got a preset domain. So there are a few things that are already pre-configured in a playground, but what it is, it's an org. It's just there's really nothing different other than they've already pre-configured some things in that org. So you don't have to do that.
So Rob put in the chat that only a playground can be examined for attainment. I'm gonna ask another ignorant question. What does that mean?
Yeah. Unless that's new,
I don't think that's
still,
true.
Yeah, I believe you can still use if you have a
You can
dev
create
org.
dev orgs for getting badges.
And that's what I've been doing this, like the however many years Trailhead's been around, is if I know I'm doing something bigger, I just create a new dev org. I've never messed with Playground or anything like that. It's just always been a new dev org.
But I know that it's common that I've seen this chatter that when people are having these kind of problems with, I can't complete my badge for some error that happens, some strange error, the answer that they usually get is try a new playground or try a new dev org. And then that answer is usually the answer that works. And you said that you've been trying this since July was the last time you created a playground? So
No, that's not the last time I created a playground.
Okay.
That's the first time I created a playground.
Mm.
And then unable to find assistance to resolve it, I created a few more playgrounds and tried it a few more times over the next few weeks. And since that time, I've been struggling and looking around for who's going to help me resolve this.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, I mean, at least 2 days ago when I did it, and I created a brand new. I went where Dale's at now, created a brand new Trailhead Playground, and then made sure that when I went down to that module, that to install it, that I was in that playground. Then it did work for me, and I just made sure that when I selected. That I selected the right playground there on that list that Dale's on.
You meaning when you say the right one, meaning the most recent one that you just installed?
Yeah, because like right now, for instance, Dale has My Trailhead Playground. Well, that's his only one, and they basically just sequentially number them, right? So if he creates a new one, he'll have My Trailhead Playground 1, and I think you can go in and rename them through the Manage My Hands-On orgs. But I'm not 100% sure there if you can rename those.
Well, I'm requesting a new playground now.
Oh yeah, there's the
robots
label.
have still been working for the last 5 minutes, so.
Yeah, so like if you go hit the pencil by any one of those, I think you can rename, change the label. Yeah, there you go.
The last time I did this, just as another data point.
I'm going to try a different.
I did do it on
login,
developer org.
I'm going to try some of your suggestions and see if I can't.
Yeah, so you can see there, Dale, right? Like to your question, and we should probably just ask Chris Duarte.
That would be too easy.
Or Adam, yeah. But
There you go.
yeah, but you can see, right, they do distinguish the types, and as Stuart said, the Trailhead Playgrounds are.
But is a Trailhead Playground ultimately going to have any more bells and whistles to it than a dev org would for the purposes of trying to complete these things? Or is it simply that the Trailhead Playground automatically connects to your master Trailhead account?
Well, I think a Trailhead Playground may have potentially more bells and whistles, just because if you're doing things across all of Trailhead, right? Maybe your dev org may not have that potential. That's just safe harbor. I'm not sure if that's completely correct, but I think certainly the main difference is essentially it does a lot of that kind of pre-configuration for you.
So Jackie brings up a good point in the chat about any other orgs that may be open, logging out of all your orgs, closing your tabs, closing your browser, just letting it kind of reset and refresh, and then logging back in with just that org that you're trying to connect to. If there's any cross-pollination of session settings, that might potentially cause an issue. It's worth a shot.
Oh gosh, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I've had that a bunch of times where I'm trying to do something and I realize there's some Chrome browser that's got a different org open in the background. Oh my gosh.
Which my domain, especially with Lightning, has helped rectify some of that, but not all of it. I can work across multiple clients in the same Chrome account session, but you never know when it's going to trip you up.
Well, that's good to know.
Corey says, Chrome incognito mode famously helps with sticky sessions, of course, because you're spinning up a whole fresh instance. I mean, yeah, essentially getting away from everything else that you're doing and starting fresh.
Yep.
I don't love managing 5 Google accounts, but I do because it helps.
Yeah, normally as long as it's the latest org you've logged into, then it'll pick that one as the install org. But yeah, that's a safe bet to just log out of all the things.
Right. And when in doubt, at the Chris Duarte on Twitter.
Or Adam.
A Torman, I think.
Yeah, Adam Torman would be another.
Just tried to install it in my new playground. That didn't work, so I guess I'll have to try the old logging everything out, logging everything in, closing everything out, logging in.
What was the error
It's
this
helpful to
time?
know that has been a problem for some other people, and that's how they've solved it, at least.
What was the error this time, Sarah?
It was the exact same, that your organization has exceeded
The space.
its data storage limits,
Data
including an overflow buffer.
Wow. When I did this, I got a very different error, and I had to switch and do it on developer org, which cleared it up. However, I'm pretty sure, having just done a bunch of Googling and the people in the chat mentioning, I don't think the storage limits are any different between these two. So you may, well, you said you saw this a long time ago, which is interesting. But I was just wondering if the sort of test data in the Dreamhouse has grown recently, because Christoph is always working on it.
Yeah, the link that I sent says make sure you use a new developer edition org using the sign up link above. So that Dreamhouse app is pretty specific, I think. So maybe you cannot use the sandbox to do that, or not sandbox, whatever word I'm trying to use there.
Playground.
Oh, maybe the playground has some data pre-configured that's taking up space where the dev org really doesn't.
That possibly. I mean, this talks about make sure you use a new DE.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just really weird because I'll try to find the module. I did it, the specific module on Trailhead that I did the other day, because I did the exact same thing. I spun up a brand new playground and then immediately installed it, and it worked fine. So yeah, I would just double, triple check that the latest org you've logged into when you install that into the.
So I'm going back to this link on difference between a playground and a DE. Right now, admin playground DE orgs look the same but have different names. Soon, playground orgs will have special walkthroughs and customizations that are especially geared towards admins. A question might be if anybody is hitting a data overflow, is this in any way data in objects? That would then potentially have you hit an overflow limit. If it's not entirely configured in the metadata and it does rely on some data, that could be part of the culprit. There's also a very real chance I'm overthinking that.
So here, I'll paste in the module. I don't know exactly which module you're doing it from, but here is the a link to, shoot, that link didn't come through. Let's try this link instead. So there's the link to the one I was using. I don't know if that's the same one you're using or not, but
It's interesting that these instructions say create a trailhead playground when .io says DE.
Yeah, that's why I wonder if there's some versioning potentially there. If, I don't know. Yeah, this is the one I did it off of though, and it worked. Because you notice this one, it has you do a data import after you install it. So I wonder if that install on the IO actually does some data work during it. Just a thought.
And the .io page was built, several versions back. This document was written before summer 18, before spring 18. So I mean, who knows what has changed in the org since then. It's really hard to measure apples versus apples.
Well, you have the playgrounds changing on their own track, and you've got Christoph changing the Dreamhouse app on his own track, and they could kind of diverge along the way. So maybe we've just found a really great Trailhead bug and can report it as such.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, I know we've got several other questions here. We got about 20 minutes left.
Jen has had her hand raised for a while. Jen.
Yeah, let's go to Jen, and we'll go to you, Joanna.
Thank you. I had hopefully this will be a quick question. Are there any gotchas for when I change a relationship from a lookup to a master detail?
Yeah, you may actually get a gigantic red flag on it, because if you have any records where that lookup is not populated, it won't let you do it because master details must have that relationship populated. It will actually safety net you in development.
Okay. But in terms of like ownership and everything, it just takes the master, right?
Yeah, well, ownership goes away in a master detail. There is no owner. It inherits from its parent. But if you are physically trying to convert a field type from lookup to an MDR, it will scan your current object's worth of data to ensure that there aren't any null values on that particular field. And if there are, it will not let you change the field type.
Okay.
And then sharing rules. If you're employing any sharing rules, those could change because I believe switching to a master detail then gives you the option of controlled by parent versus independent sharing, I think. It's been a while since I've touched that piece, but the big one is if all your lookups aren't populated, it's not going to work.
Okay. And then my other question was, has anybody implemented account teams? I haven't been doing it now, but kind of want to do it. But my users are so used to populating user lookup fields on the account record. So I built a flow that would, based on those lookup, if they change that, it would populate the account teams. And I think when I was in the Salesforce webinar, and they're like, why are you doing that? Just let your users use account team itself, so then you don't need the flow. Pros and cons of that.
So the big question is, with your current model of using user lookups, are you triggering any automation off of one of those lookups being populated? Because the reason I ask is the account team object absolutely cannot, I don't even know if you can do it in code, cannot trigger any kind of automation, process builder, workflow, anything like that. It's essentially an end result of something.
Okay.
But it would.
Both, since I already built the flow that would populate. I just need the account team for rights, for edit rights, because I have a team of, I have a sales rep, internal sales rep. They both need edit rights on the object. And right now it's based on the owner. So when it flips to inside sales, sales rep does not have edit rights to that record, which sometimes they want to. So rather than manually going into the record and sharing it, I want to implement account teams. But then I think I have some process builder built around some of those lookup fields that I have on the account.
So from the editability standpoint, that's exactly why you should do account teams, because you can control that not only for accounts, but contact cases and I believe opportunities as well. So from that standpoint, yes. But if your current structure was firing any automation, then you'd have something you'd have to work through. But yeah, from a security standpoint, definitely account teams is the way to go.
Okay. I just wondered if I was overcomplicating things or not with using a flow to populate account teams rather than letting my users go directly to account teams.
No, and that's that might be a good transition tool. Let them have that for a little bit and then start to instruct them on, okay, we're going to phase this piece out and you will eventually go straight towards adding account teams. Then you can get rid of a few extra fields. You can get rid of a process builder and a flow or a button or however you're doing it. And they still get what it is that they need to do the things without it being such a painful transition.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, and then I know that Joanna, you had a question posted in here for a while, so let's go to you on creating events and posting them to your website. You're having issues with the images rendering correctly?
Yeah, and hopefully, maybe I could share my screen. It might be easier to kind of show it that way, I think. So let's see.
Go for it. I just stopped sharing mine.
Share main screen. So as I had mentioned there, we use Salesforce to create events. And down here is where we have, right here, image URL. As I said, we have people go to Bitly to kind of shorten it. That usually has solved it. But what's not happening is here you can see the image preview isn't rendering. And when I go to our website, there are quite a few that don't have the image, but then there are a few that do have the image. And I can't figure out why some are working and why some are not working. So I guess that's my question, if anybody can help with figuring out, do they have to be in a specific format? Does it have to be HTTPS versus HTTP? And also, like, we're just using links for this. Is there a better way to get people to upload images?
Well, so these are stored in Salesforce?
They're not. So they're just and maybe that is the way to go. But currently they're not stored in Salesforce.
Well, is this is just your website, right? This isn't in a Salesforce community page or anything like that, right?
No, it's our website, but our events get pushed to the website from Salesforce.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I would just make sure that those images are accessible publicly. That's normally what I see in these cases, that it's just not maybe fully accessible
Okay.
from a public standpoint. Like, you could probably see it because you're within the company and, but that would be the first thing I would check. That's normally what I see with those situations.
Yeah, what would happen if you took that image URL and put it into, say, like a Chrome incognito mode, emulating a user? Maybe they won't see it either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see there, you can't, in
Yeah.
that case, you can't see it. So it's probably just the fact that, and it looks like that was posted, that was a Google image
Mm-hmm.
link. So yeah, so Google user content. Okay. So yeah, I would say it's probably just the fact that that photo is not made public.
Okay.
But Jared, if they go to storing their images in Salesforce, does that then start to open up the need for communities, or can it still be exposed the way that it is today?
You could still do it publicly, but you would have an extra step similar to like you'd have with Google or other places, is that you would have to generate on that file. So you could upload it as a file, and then you could go in there and generate the public link to that file, and then you would use that link in to access the image publicly without having
Okay.
to log in.
Okay, so I think the step I was missing, so I tried doing that too, uploading it to files, but I think the public part is what I was missing before. So I'll take a look at that. Okay.
Awesome.
And then, yeah, I think it goes back to making sure that the links that they're putting in there are accurate, are actual links that are made public before. So I'll start with those two suggestions. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Okay, let's see here. Aaron, you had your hand raised. Go for it. Aaron, looks like you're muted here. Dale, can you unmute Aaron?
So,
There we
Perfect.
okay. Hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. I was just curious if anyone customized stage duration declaratively, because the report doesn't really work for us because of batch jobs. The stage has multiple timestamps. The same stage has multiple timestamps. So I built this process. Sorry, I have allergies. In Process Builder. So basically, I have a start date and an end date when the value is populated, right? And the stage value is populated. And then I have another formula field, which basically says, the days between, prospect start and end date. And then if the end date is blank, then just count the days from today. Okay. So the issue that I have is when we allow the users to revert a few of the stages, so then the formula field becomes a negative, right? So then it's like -3 days because the dates are off. So then what happens is I cannot clear the end date because it's based on a formula field. Does this make sense to anyone?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that, I believe, is going to have to be addressed in Apex, right? Because the start, when it's reverted, the start date, restamps to the correct, to the now, and then the end date is different. So like I said, it's a negative. So I may be overthinking this. I'm not really sure if there's anything out there by Jen Lee or Automation Champion or, whoever. But I was just curious if anyone else has or plans on addressing this issue with stage duration.
Well, the thing with stage duration, it's a report-only field, and it very simply assumes that your opportunity is moving through the stages in a forward fashion, and how long has it been there. It doesn't mean it's the end-all, be-all for all organizations. I guess the question is what value is that duration bringing to the business process, and what, if any, business rules are there that are either allowing or should not allow stages to go backwards that are then, making this happen? What are some of those answers, I guess?
I agree 100%.
There you go.
We all have this issue as an admin, that no one really listens to best practice. And I'm screaming from the rooftop, but nothing is changing. And I want to run analytics about, how long opportunities are staying in particular stages. We need to run analytics because do I need to optimize the process? There's a lot of ways to look at it, but I just need to capture how many days the opportunity was in a specific stage value.
Are you doing field history tracking on the stage field?
Yeah. Yeah, we have that because we also have that report. We have the stage, the field history, and then we have the opportunity history. The opportunity history is actually better, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But it's just, you can't customize it. You can't, it's so limited. It really is. So for us, this has to be built out on the back end.
Clarifying question. Is it that you want to capture multiple windows? So in other words, when it's in a certain stage, you want sort of the clock to start and you want to measure that window. And then if it flips to another stage and comes back, you want to start the counter again?
Yes. If that's the best case scenario, then we can start the clock again when it reverts.
So you're trying to figure out the number, no matter how many times it toggles back and forth between that stage, you want to know sort of the number of days it was in that particular stage.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And then if while it's in that stage, then basically the end date has to be clear. It has to be a blank field while it's in that stage. So after it reverts, clear out the end date.
So this is Jared. The thought that just popped into my head, and you have to tinker around with it, what you could do, what I've done in similar situations, because as I think Corey's kind of alluding to, that gets complex, right? Because you've essentially trying to capture the duration, but then 5 days of being in that stage, I move it out of the stage, and for a couple of days, and then I come back to the stage. Well, and I come back to the stage for another 5 days, right? Okay, well, you want to see that it's been in that stage for a total of 10 days at that point, not the last 5. So one thing you could do is this would require an additional field. So you would create an additional number field, not a formula, that you would essentially, what you'd have to do is, and I'm trying to think through this, is you would have to work up some automation that would basically count the days whenever. So I think you would have to do is whenever it leaves that stage, is you would count the number of days between when it went into the stage or when it left the stage. And you would count those days and you would stamp it into that field. And then basically you would make that also, when you create that formula to stamp those number of days, you would take the prior value and put it on the front end. So it'd be like prior value plus whatever your day's calculation is. So what that would do, right, is that in the first stage, it would just say, oh, it's been in there 5 days. But if it moves into that stage again, and it moves out of the stage again, then it would take that next calculation, right? Because you're overriding the
Yes.
the start and end date.
Exactly.
Then it would take that next calculation and just add it to that. So then it would become 5 plus 5 and equal 10. And then if you it did it again, it should in theory keep just essentially adding on to that number as you go. That's something I've done before that has worked. There's potentially loopholes and things like that I'm not thinking of, but that's something to possibly do. But it's only
That's a good point. That's a very good point because you are capturing historical data.
Yes. And the only caveat, right, is you're only going to be able to report on it. You could create an additional field, right, to put like, current number of days. You could do a formula to do the current number of days, right, using that days field that you're stamping and, the additional information. But to, report on the total number of days, you'd have to wait to the end, but that would potentially work for you.
Okay, I will try that because I have the start and the end and then the formula field for every stage. And I just, I just wish it was a better report, but it's fine, but that's a very good point. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, we've got like 3 minutes left, and I know that John Graff had a question.
I'm looking at it. I'm here. I'll
open that up. No. I've seen this before. I mean, I've seen this issue just with like names. That's interesting. A suffix. That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds more like a bug, to be honest. It's interesting that his name, at least what I can tell from the screenshot, it just shows up as like Daniel Martin and not Daniel Martin Sr.
I think that might just be a limitation of width.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what I was trying to tell.
But the senior would have anything to do with that.
That doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Wait, user or contact? Does user have a suffix field? Oh yeah, okay. He's looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the same thing happens on contact, too.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm gonna have to think about this. I've seen this before though on diving into reports like that. It does that. It will create that new filtered where it adds the filter of something equals that, but then the new report ends up with no data in it. I've seen this exact same thing before. Where have I seen this?
I've seen it more so with like lookups and stuff in the past where they have like a middle name or they have a suffix in the name or two last names, right? Like,
So here's a question. Does the full name, like system field, where it concatenates first and last, does that bring in suffix? And I guess the other question is, I don't think there's a prefix, like a doctor, Mr., Mrs. on user, but there definitely is on contact. Does that full name bring those in so that then when you try to query, it creates this mismatch?
yeah. So I will tell you that I'm in my org now, and yeah, it seemed weird to me. There is no actual suffix field. So what I'm thinking it is it's more so the suffix is just put in the last name.
Well, but if suffix is in the last name, it's just part of the last name.
Yeah, but I've seen issues before where if it's not like hyphenated, if it's not like hyphen senior or whatever, that for some reason
Yeah.
Salesforce has troubles with that.
Which is actually still so super weird because technically on the back end, it's not querying on name. It should be querying on ID. It just enters as
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing. It shouldn't show it the name. The opportunity owner is a lookup to an ID, not
right.
looking up to a name at all. It's the owner. It's the owner ID. Yeah. Opportunity owner.
Yeah, so 005 should be going up against 005.
That's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, especially clicking down. I've only seen that before when you're like searching.
I don't want to drop the mic at 2 after and say John Graff is Steve Moe on this one, but I think we got something we need to float up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because that's odd. It's very odd.
That's not right.
Yeah.
I gotta go, but keep this one open. I want to look at this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very mysterious. Cool. Well, yeah, thanks everybody. I appreciate you hanging on a little bit after here. A lot of great questions and answers, and hopefully everybody found it valuable. And we'll post the recording soon. Everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you, everybody.